Right now, the entire cryptocurrency market is searching for direction, but for XRP holders, this moment is especially important. While prices across the board have been under pressure, the real story isn't about short-term movement. It's about positioning, it's about regulatory clarity, and it's about why XRP may be sitting closer to the center of what comes next than most people realize. Hey guys, welcome back to Whiteboard Crypto Update. In today's video, we will talk about XRP. So be sure to stay focused, as you surely don't want to miss out on this. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications by hitting the bell so you never miss any of our uploads. This video is for educational purposes only. It is not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. Today, we finally received two key signals that give us a realistic timeline for when long-awaited regulatory clarity could become law, and why that moment could be a turning point not just for crypto broadly, but specifically for XRP. Before getting into the details, let's talk honestly for a moment. These market conditions are tough. Watching value decline, sentiment weaken, and confidence disappear isn't easy for anyone. Even people who fully understand the long-term potential of XRP feel it, but this phase is not new, and it's not permanent. Anyone who has been in crypto long enough recognizes this pattern. Fear peaks when fundamentals are strongest, and confusion dominates right before structure returns. For newer participants, it's important to understand this. What we're seeing right now is not a rejection of XRP, and it's not a failure of the technology. This is a sentiment-driven phase where markets intentionally apply pressure. Assets move from weak conviction to strong conviction, from uncertainty to certainty. This is how positioning resets before the next stage. And that matters more for XRP than almost any other digital asset. Why? Because XRP has always been tied to regulation, structure, and institutional adoption. Unlike many projects that thrived in unregulated environments, XRP's long-term use case depends on clarity. It depends on rules. It depends on large financial players being able to operate without legal uncertainty. That's why what's happening now is so critical. At the same time this market pressure is unfolding, cracks are beginning to show elsewhere in the crypto ecosystem. Recently, discussion from within the Ethereum community has raised serious questions about the long-term viability of Layer 2 solutions. For years, these secondary networks were presented as Ethereum's answer to scaling, but in reality, they introduced complexity, fragmentation, and value leakage. Layer 2s were never true solutions. They were workarounds, separate systems sitting on top of a base layer that couldn't handle demand on its own. Over time, they pulled activity and value away from the main network instead of strengthening it. Now, even Ethereum's own leadership appears to be reconsidering that path. This is important because it highlights a major difference in design philosophy. Some networks rushed development. They added features quickly, pushed updates aggressively, and promised to fix problems later. XRP took the opposite approach. The XRP ledger was built slowly, deliberately, and with a clear purpose: efficient settlement, liquidity movement, and reliability at scale. Not experimentation, not endless patching, real-world functionality. And now, as markets tighten and scrutiny increases, those early design decisions matter more than ever. XRP doesn't require layers of complexity to function. It doesn't rely on external systems to scale. It was built with the understanding that global finance demands speed, stability, and predictability. Those qualities aren't flashy in bull markets, but they become invaluable during periods like this. Which brings us back to regulatory clarity. Despite growing political attention, rising institutional interest, and increasing recognition of XRP's utility, capital has largely remained cautious. Interest is high. Awareness is everywhere. XRP is part of the conversation at levels it has never been before, yet broad market confidence hasn't fully returned. The missing piece is certainty, and that's where the clarity legislation comes in. Recently, two major developments suggest that this legislation may finally be approaching the finish line. First, conversations involving policymakers and industry insiders point to a timeline that places potential passage in early April. That window aligns with existing regulatory deadlines and negotiations involving major financial players. Second, the government funding issue has been resolved. This removes a major obstacle that could have delayed progress. With the risk of shutdown disruptions off the table, lawmakers now have the ability to focus on priorities that were previously stalled. This matters because XRP has always been most sensitive to regulatory signals. When clarity arrives, XRP is one of the few assets positioned to immediately benefit, not hypothetically, but structurally. There was a period where disagreement slowed progress. Certain platforms believed they had leverage to delay legislation until every demand was met. But market conditions changed leverage quickly. As prices fell and sentiment weakened, the broader industry made something clear. Clarity itself is more important than individual interests. At this stage, the market doesn't need perfection. It needs direction. With political cycles approaching and uncertainty increasing over time, this window may represent the strongest opportunity to finalize meaningful regulatory structure. Delaying further only extends confusion and holds capital back. That's why confidence is growing that clarity legislation will move forward sooner rather than later. If and when that happens, it doesn't instantly send prices higher, but it changes the foundation. It allows institutions to operate with confidence. It gives banks, payment providers, and financial infrastructure players the green light to move forward. And for XRP, that's where the real story begins. When you zoom out and imagine looking back 5 years from now, a sharp downturn right before regulatory clarity wouldn't be surprising at all. In fact, it would make perfect sense. Markets often exhaust patience and conviction before major structural shifts. This period feels heavy because we're living inside it, but in hindsight, it may look like a necessary reset before XRP's role in the financial system becomes fully visible. The technology hasn't failed. Adoption hasn't stopped. Infrastructure continues quietly behind the scenes. What we're seeing now looks very much like one final shakeout, a moment designed to test belief before clarity arrives. And while short-term price action can move unpredictably, understanding why this is happening makes all the difference. If regulatory clarity crosses the finish line as expected, this phase will likely be remembered not as the end of XRP's story, but as the moment right before the next chapter truly began. Well, guys, that's all we have for you today. What are your thoughts on XRP? Get involved and let us know in the comments down below. If you guys like this video, then be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Thank you for watching.